In addition to coming out as a member of the LGBT community, one daunting task for these individuals is coping with and overcoming the challenges that follow, especially in China, where, although society at large is gradually becoming more accepting of the LGBT community, these individuals still have less access to LGBT support and resources than other developed countries, and still face significant discrimination by their government. On this episode of the What is Asia podcast, I interview Shia Majer, a transgender activist and entrepreneur, to talk about some of her experiences as a transgender citizen of China and some of the hardships that the LGBT community still faces in China today. Shia, thanks for coming on this episode of the What is Asia podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, as I mentioned in the introduction, you are an activist for the LGBT community, particularly for the transgender community. And so, because you're the first member of the LGBT community that we're having on this show, particularly from China, I wanted you to start off by giving us a brief history of the LGBT community or LGBT movements in China, because this is something that most of my audience would not know that much about.
Okay, it's a tricky question because when people talk about China, when people outside of China talk about China, it seems like there's always a lot of things that seem to be unknown or like just not so clear, especially about this LGBT thing, because I believe that most of the people know that China is not much of a super open-minded country. So there's a lot of things that the government is still like processing, let's say. So the movement itself is really difficult to explain properly because there's a lot of hidden history that the young generation, including me, would never be able to find out. So all I can say is from what I know, the LGBT movement has been, I would say in general, like if you see it like as a big picture, I think that the Chinese LGBT movement is like getting somewhere because like about 20 years ago, I think it was around like 1993, China has no longer at the time China no longer recognized LGBT, specifically gay, is not being gay is not a mental illness. So it was a very good turning point for the LGBT people in China. And I feel like from the past 20 years, people have been trying really hard to build up either like NGOs and stuff. So everybody's like trying really hard. And every year, when it comes to some kind of national meetings, there's always like some people who would try to suggest to the higher level of those, we call them the big brothers. We would always try our best to suggest them something about the LGBT community to make them aware that we exist and there is this problem and that problem now that we are waiting for that to be changed. And yeah, so I think in general it's getting somewhere, but when it comes to a lot of offline things, like very specific event, it's still really hard. It's still really hard for like LGBT activists or like organizations to host like offline events and stuff, because somehow it's just not cool. Somehow it's just, I wouldn't call it illegal because, there's no law that in China they would say like, hosting LGBT event is like illegal. But there's always something here and there that would stop us from hosting more and more events. Like somehow you can kind of tell like the attitude from the government that they it's like, okay, we accept that you guys exist now, but I don't want you guys to go like all the way up and be like, waving the rainbow flag on the street and stuff. Like, we don't want to see that. You are never gonna be on the mainstream TV shows and stuff. So like, I feel like that's kind of the attitude of the government is having now these days. So a lot of shows, a lot of things that are related to LGBT were taken down, especially during these past 2 years. Things are getting worse. I don't know why, but things are just getting worse. It's such a tricky situation. Like, even for people who are living in this country cannot have the full insight of what's happening right now, because there's just like there are levels, there are layers, and just a lot of things are hidden. So I can only tell you things that I know. So I'm not trying to, act like, I'm the Miss Know-it-all, but it's definitely a very tricky situation. Yeah.
So, in your experience, when you're out in your everyday life, you do talk about how LGBT people are still fairly suppressed in the media, but I wonder if when you're out in your everyday life, do you notice at least some LGBT presence in literature, in film and TV, on advertisements like billboards, things like that?
Not really. The only person, I think that's a miracle that we have her in China. The only person, the only celebrity I know is this woman. She's a dancer. Her name is Jingxing. She's very famous. She's a transgender woman. But that's the only person I know. I think that's a miracle, with the attitude of the government. I think it's such a miracle that we have Jingxing on TVs and stuff, But I can definitely see like
I do want to point out for our audience that something that's also quite remarkable about her is that she used to be in the military. And, obviously the military carries a very masculine connotation. So to break from that mold and identify as a transgender woman must have been particularly striking for people living in China.
Yeah. It's like she's very brave, and she's kind of like a role model for a lot of us in China. But you can still see like on her shows, she would never talk about like LGBT stuff. Like she's kind of just like, I guess she's like kind of forbidden to talk about such topics. So she's always just talking about her life as a regular woman, which is all right. I mean, transgender women are women, so we are all regular women. And but it's just it makes you wonder, like how did she get there, and how is she not allowed to talk about certain things still? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. Like it's such a tricky situation that we're dealing with here. It's just sometimes things are so good, sometimes things are just like, like you don't know where it's going. And yeah, but that's like the only person I know. We do have a few like transgender models. My friend Yaya, she was in this, I forgot the name of that beauty campaign in Thailand. Forgot the name, but a few years ago she went there and she was the second runner up, and she's now also getting somewhere. Well, we have this Chinese video platform. It's like a Chinese version of YouTube called Bilibili, and she's kind of famous on that platform now. But yeah, that's kind of it. It's like I feel like the government they allows you to exist. as long as you're not too out there. You're as long as your voice is not too loud. That's kind of how I feel. Yeah, and the recent thing, there's one big major recent event. It happened actually like I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago. A Chinese soccer player. She's a lesbian woman. I think it was a birthday or something. She posted a few photos of her and her girlfriend. She posted on this Chinese social media platform called Weibo, which is like the Chinese version of Twitter. And it immediately got removed, and she was not allowed it to even explain like why the post was removed, and she didn't post anything since, and it's been a few days. So um it's that, yeah, it really makes me like sometimes start wondering like just what's happening in this country. Yeah.
Um, I want to bring maybe some of your own personal experiences into the frame, if that's okay with you, and ask what societal challenges do transgender people in China in particular endure? And does being transgender in China make it difficult to pursue friendships or romantic relationships or employment? And if so, how?
um that's very personal. Let me think about how to put this right. um
I mean, you don't
okay,
have
so
to talk personally if you don't want to, but you can if you.
no, it's fine. I would like to be a good storyteller. It's just I need to put this right because sometimes people may take things wrong. Like you just don't know about online people these days. Um, yeah, so I feel like as transgender people, um, okay, I don't want to speak for everyone, but like from my personal experience, I can definitely say that it's really hard to live full time as a transgender woman in China. The fact that Chinese people have this strong value about family and like giving birth to the next generation, that kind of ideal family life. The fact that we're having this as the cultural background, it makes us really really difficult on when it comes in our dating lives and stuff. So like the relationship with my family and the relationships with my boyfriends. I've never had a Chinese boyfriend in my entire life. So all my ex-boyfriends were foreigners. And I think one of the major reasons is because of this. Like, I just find it really difficult to get into a relationship with a Chinese person, knowing that we have such a cultural background and there's just so many things that I need to consider. It's beyond it, it's not just about loving someone. It's not just about being with him. It's about dealing with his family, his co-workers, everybody, the whole society. Sometimes you feel like you're just fighting against the society. And professionally, when it comes to work and stuff, I find it extremely difficult to live your true self in your workplace. I live in Guangzhou, and when I first moved to this city, and Guangzhou, I think, is the third biggest country. And then, sorry, Guangzhou is like the third biggest city in China. So you would assume like, okay, it wouldn't be that bad, right? People would be open-minded, and especially I was in the fashion industry. I was a fashion designer before, and you would assume that things would be okay. People would understand, especially the young generation, and that's what I was thinking. And I came out as a transgender woman in 2016, and a lot of things just went down like within the night. I had friends leaving me without saying anything. it was such a big hit in my career path, because when I was doing fashion design, I was going to showrooms, I was going to the fabric market and stuff. I needed to talk to a lot of people. I was taking up interviews and everything as well. I was on TV even, and when you are still public, it's really hard to take those comments from people, even though we all know that you shouldn't give a damn, but it's just really hard to not give a damn. And yeah, it's a very difficult journey, living as a transgender person in China professionally, and also in your private life when it comes to your family and your lovers and stuff. And just like people are afraid to be different. People are afraid to have different people, special people in their lives. I remember when I first moved to Guangzhou, I was trying to get a job. I was like kind of like a rising star in the fashion industry here. So that was before my transition. Everything was going well, and people loved my stuff, my design and everything. And um, and then I came out as a transgender woman. Things were going down, like I said, and I was like, at the time, it was a huge hit for my brand. So I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna try to find a job then in a random fashion company, any place that would take me, basically. Yeah, and then I went to a few interviews, and they all went like horribly wrong. I remember this one specific interview where I sat down. I sat down and I started talking to the front desk person first, and then the head designer, and then the HR, and then the boss. So I talked to 4 people, and we were talking for like about 4 hours in total. Like you would be like, oh, what were you talking about? Like a job interview for like 4 hours? Like you must be so great. They really want to get to know you. They really want to hire you. But the harsh reality was, it was never about my job. It was not about my skills, or like they didn't even look at my resume. They didn't even look at my previous works and stuff. Like where I graduated from, things that I've done before, shows I've done before. Like no, not like what they were talking about. They were asking me a lot of private questions, like, so are your boobs real? Or like, what do you have between your legs? They were just being really ridiculous. And I was getting really uncomfortable there. Imagine like being there, wanting a job, trying to get them to talk about the job, and all they were talking about was just about your body. And at the end of the interview, I remember clearly the HR came into the office and she spoke to me this one specific line. She said, we think you're really great, but we just think you're just too special. And I was like, I froze there. I was like, what do you mean by special? I'm just sitting here like a regular designer, having regular conversations with you, trying to get a job, and you didn't even look at my resume. And you were asking, like half of the time you're asking about my body and stuff, and now you're telling me that I am special. And that's the reason why I'm not hired. Like, it's just, crazy. And that was the point when I was like, enough is enough. And ever since then, I just decided to build up my own business. And that's why I really want, like, every speech or interview I take, I always tell people that I'm a transgender entrepreneur. I want people to know that there are people out there who are trying really hard to fight for their place. And I want to show people the hope. I want them to know that being LGBT is really nothing major. Like, if people don't want to accept you, then you just create your own kingdom. And all you need to do is you need to just try really hard to build out more skills and connections and stuff and find the right people, whether it's friends or boyfriends, or choose your own family, basically. Yeah.
And I guess one thing I wanted to clarify, and maybe you can give a little more insight into this. Um, China is not a predominantly Christian nation, and here in the U.S., one of the major points of contention between society and the LGBT community is that a lot of people who are conservative and evangelical Christians say, well, being gay goes against the Bible or goes against God, but that's not the case in China. My understanding is that the tension has always been with the family saying, oh, well, our son or daughter won't be able to continue on the family line if they transition. Is this the case? Is this why there is such a prejudice against people transitioning?
From the parents' side, I think there are two major factors. One is like what you said, like Chinese people do care about their blood, like continuing the generations and stuff, giving birth is like a huge thing. If a Chinese woman, regular cisgender woman, I'm saying, if she cannot give birth to babies, some people would just look at her like she has committed some kind of crime or something, like she's evil, and just, she needs to leave the house, leave the family, and just so that's one of the major factors. And the other one, I would say it's the shame that the family are bearing from the society, because a lot of people really just don't know what it is, and they don't know what to do, like what to do to how to deal with it. So it's just this, they just kind of fell into this odd zone where they don't know what to say, they don't know how to react, they don't know how to communicate with you anymore, and they are so afraid of this unknown situation. Because I feel like I said, Chinese people are, I mean, most of the Chinese people are afraid of, being different, or having different people in their lives. So when you have a family member who is a transgender person, especially when you are the parent, you start worrying a lot about not just your kid, but also your reputation in the society, like in your company, and even your parents. They will start blaming you, like there must be something wrong with you to raise such a kid like this. That kind of burden, I think, like these two are the big issues that a lot of Chinese families have when it comes to having like transgender kids. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this next question isn't to suggest that you're speaking for all LGBT people, but in your experience and with the people that you've talked to from this community in China, how do LGBT people how do they cope with, living in a very conservative family that doesn't accept LGBT people?
So I've worked with a few NGOs before, and I've heard of a few extreme cases. I've heard of stories like some parents would just lock the kids out up, and then, or they would take you to some kind of doctors and try to cure you. It's really nothing new. It happens in every country, and it's, I don't think there's a perfect solution or a perfect plan, like to handle such situation. I'm not saying like all the Chinese families would be against the idea of having transgender children, but with the social media situation we're dealing with now, a lot of people, especially the parents, the older generation especially, they don't really have many resources to understand what's going on with their kids and stuff. So it's hard. It's hard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really hard.
Um,
I remember one kid when I was working with this NGO, I think a few years ago. I heard of this one kid. She was locked up in her bedroom, and she couldn't go anywhere. And for that one time, she finally convinced her mother to let her use her phone. So she posted something online to basically look for help, and all the NGOs. We were trying to get the people in that city to go and rescue her, but it was just going nowhere because her parents were just being so mean, and the police officers there, they were just, none of them understood what LGBT means, and they were just very aggressive. And I remember that kid, she was living on fourth floor, and she once she realized that we couldn't get in, she jumped. She didn't jump down, but she was like trying to escape. She was trying to climb on something, but she fell down, all the way from fourth floor, and she ended up in the hospital, and it was just such a bad situation. Like there are a lot of stories like this. A lot of transgender people and just end up homeless.
so talking, I guess, in tangent to you working for this NGO, my next question is, currently, what kinds of transgender resources are, or I guess we could talk LGBT resources in general, are available in China? Are there a lot of NGOs? Are there not many? Is the amount of transgender and LGBT in general resources growing? Like, for example, if an individual says, hey, I want to start HRT, which for those who don't know, HRT is hormone replacement therapy. How difficult is it for a transgender individual to access those resources at a hospital, from a medical professional, etc.?
For medical support, such as HRT, it's actually really hard to get like proper treatment. From what I know, a lot of kids, they mostly started from like reaching out to some black market, some WeChat accounts, people who are buying stuff from other countries, like for example Thailand or America, and then there are this group of people, who would bring medicine and stuff back to China, and then they would sell medicine and stuff online. So that's the black market thing that a lot of people are doing, unfortunately, because when it comes to medical support, if you want to get like a proper treatment, you will need to start, first of all, seeing a therapy, a doctor, someone who's professional. But most of the time, they are so afraid of getting themselves into troubles because some parents can be crazy, and once they realize, oh, my kid is going to this kind of therapy, and that their therapy is like telling him or her like, there's nothing wrong with you, it's totally fine to be who you are, it can be some chaos. So that's one problem that we have here. Like a lot of professional doctors, they don't even want to support, they don't want to give treatments, consultations to patients. And also, when it comes to such consultations, if you are below 18 years old, you need your parents to sign some kind of paperwork and stuff. Like they basically need to be aware of like, okay, my kid is going to this therapy now, doing this and that, which is not protecting the patient's privacy. and a lot of people are very against it. And for those who are older than 18, like I said, they're worrying about the doctors not wanting to give the treatment, or the doctor actually saying like, okay, there is something wrong with you, just simply because the doctor doesn't have enough knowledge, because we just really don't have many resources in China. So even for the professional doctors, sometimes some of them can be, some of them have no clue like how to give like a proper consultation or treatment. And then when it comes to medicine, especially, they are terrified. They really want to stay away from potential troubles. So they would always hold you for like a good 2 years to make sure that you really, really, really want this. You really, really want HRT. You are really, really, really a transgender person. And then they would start considering giving you stuff, medicine and stuff. The whole system is just not there yet. It's not even good. So that's something that we are dealing with. When I first started my transition, I was also, reaching out to people who are from that black market, and they were buying medicine from Thailand, and I was taking those pills for like 3 years, 4 years, something like that before my surgery. And ever since I completed my surgery, things got better because now I am physically and legally a female in China, which is surprising. Like, we talked about the tricky situation in China, but the fun fact is, as a transgender person, if you have completed your surgery, you are actually able to change your gender marker on your ID. When I first realized that, I was like, just wow, just wow, and that's kind of like the medical part. Sorry, you were asking me about something before that medical thing. What was it?
Just like available resources that.
Oh yeah. I got stories to tell. um, so we do have some NGOs in big cities such as Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Wuhan, and I think maximum 10 cities. The 10 biggest cities in China. We do have some NGOs, but the thing is just like the works that they do are getting more and more difficult these years. Especially recently, especially after that soccer player, the lesbian soccer player, her post got removed. Especially since then, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, a lot of the LGBT WeChat public accounts, which is kind of like a Facebook page thing, like a Facebook page thing. Yeah. They were all removed. They were all blocked. And like all of a sudden, I think there were at least like 15 of them. They were all like just within the night, they were all gone. And all the articles and stuff, they were all gone. And it was very shocking knowing that the Tencent company is doing this without even trying to cover it. It's yeah. So we have resources, but they are very limited. Especially when it comes to the transgender community, there are really not many people who can actually offer help and support, and that's why it's so important to be able to take care of yourself, because there really are not that many people out there who can look after you. That's kind of what we are dealing with in this country. Yeah.
So we're talking a lot about censorship of the LGBT community. And one thing that you and I were discussing before we started our interview was an article that was recently, published on several platforms that talk about the government deleting several LGBT WeChat groups that were hosted by university students. And I want to clarify for those who don't know, WeChat is, as we were talking about, similar to Facebook. It's a social media messaging site. And these students had created, at various universities, these students had created LGBT support groups, many of which were recently deleted without notice and without any real reason. So I guess I just wanted to ask you if you can provide some more details to this, and if you can uh, relay, in your conversations with other LGBT people, have what have people been saying about this censorship?
It's been a big fight going on from the past few days. Ever since we knew that all the articles, all the accounts were deleted, the majority of the people are just wondering, like, why is this, like, why is it possible? Like, how can the government do such a thing like this? Like, since 1993, being gay or being LGBT is like no longer a mental illness, and like, so why is the government still doing that? Whoever's behind this, why are they doing this? Um, I think that the biggest reason is, like, I feel like the more and more people, they feel like their voice can be heard now, or like they felt like they could say certain things now on social media, and I feel like a lot of the young people, the young kids, the Z generation especially, I feel like a lot of them are very open about their sexuality now these days, and a lot of them are very active um, on the internet. So it's really easy to find your own community, and it's really and I think that's why the government is so, I wouldn't say terrified, but like it's definitely something that they're concerned about. And like I said, they kind of want, they wouldn't like ban you from existing, but once your voice is getting too strong and too loud, they would just like erase you, and they wouldn't even feel sorry about it. They wouldn't even need to explain it, because this is a one-party country. Like, who to explain this to, you know? Um, and yeah, and all those accounts, they were founded by students studying in those universities, and they were all education purpose accounts. There was nothing horny, there was nothing like crossing the line, or like there was nothing wrong, nothing illegal. It was really just about like sex education, and helping LGBT kids and parents to understand more and more about what it means to be LGBT, and how to come over certain things, and yeah, and they were all removed, and it was just like, I was shook, the American term, I was shook. um yeah, but there's this big fight going on now, on WeChat especially. There's a lot of accounts, conservative, those conservative people. They now see that the Chinese government is banning all these education purpose LGBT accounts now. So they started publishing WeChat articles saying that China did a wonderful job, and they are now encouraging parents to do a lot of silly things to you know to basically keep the children away from this mental illness. And it's like, I get angry just by thinking about what I've written these 2 days. Like, it's the things they've written were just so extreme, talking about the Chinese history, the importance of giving birth. It's basically like Christ. I'm sorry. I mean, if you're watching this and if you're a Christian, I don't mean to offend you, but it it's very much like what a lot of Christians would be saying to the LGBT community, like God will not accept you, your parents will not accept you, you're gonna die young. Like there is this myth, like this rumor thing going around saying that transgender people will not live long because of the HRT that they are taking. And there is a lot of false information online now, and a lot of these conservative accounts are taking these false information to write articles to try to mislead more people to believe that being LGBT is wrong, being LGBT is not natural, it's not okay, it's a sin, and it should be forbidden. And Chinese government is doing such a good job. We should follow the lead and stuff. So this, it's just such a chaos. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. So yeah.
I just had a couple questions before we finish up. One of them is, of course, you're very active with working with other people in the LGBT community, and you are obviously making strong efforts to expand your presence in China. Do you and the people that you talk to in the LGBT community feel hopeful that the future is going to be better for LGBT people in China, or are you concerned that things are going to get worse in the long-term future?
I've been hearing things from other people who actually went to jail for organizing LGBT parties and stuff. I've heard that things are very ugly in the jail, police station, wherever the big brothers are. But personally, I still believe in the next generation. I still believe that the future will be better. It's just a matter of time, because I do know this, like the young generation, the Z generation especially, we all have internet now, we have phones and computers and stuff. So like it's really not that difficult to do your research on LGBT and try to figure out what it is, instead of just listening to your parents or random people telling you like, oh, it's not okay, it's wrong and stuff. So I feel like people now they have more of like some free wills. They know more about what they want, what they like, and they can judge things by themselves now, instead of just listening to parents and teachers and stuff like in the past. So I feel like with the internet is very important. And although we have this Chinese Great Wall thing happening, but still I think a lot of people still found a way to connect with the world, and to truly understand, that this community is really like nothing harmful. And I do believe that with more and more people being awakened, I think the future is still bright. It's just that China is such a big country. You can't expect things to change overnight. So we just really have to wait. But yeah, I do believe that in the next 1 or 2 generation, I think things will get better once the younger generation take over the leads. When they start working in governments, and when we the young people have the power, then we'll be able to make a change. Yeah, like I mean, look at Taiwan. Like I really wasn't expecting Taiwan to legalize same sex marriage. Consider like it's such a sensitive place, and a very sensitive relationship with China. But even they did that, you know. So I think that in the future, China will be able to actually be better and better. Let's hope so. I would really rather thinking like that. Um, because at the end of the day, I am Chinese, and I'm really trying to be proud of who I am and where I came from. Like this is the place that that raised me up, and um, I would love to do more and more to help the community here and to make a difference. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, and just my last question is, let's say someone's listening to this and they say, I want to know more about the LGBT community in China, or maybe I want to help out with the LGBT community in China in some way. Can you recommend some resources like books or TV or videos online that people can watch, or in addition, websites that people can go to help support in some way?
There isn't really anything I can think of right now because um, this country is just such a magical land. Things are either just really good or really bad. And a lot of publishers, a lot of writers, bloggers, whatever, when they write about China, it's always like either really good or either really bad. Um, you would see people talking about how conservative China is, and just talk about all these like shitty things happening in China now, and how China is not gonna get better. Like, China is like not a good place to live, not a good place to work, and blah blah blah. But then you have another group of people saying China is such a safe country. We don't have gunshots here, obviously. And they're I mean, they are both right, I have to say, but I haven't really found any like trustful resource or like a website or like a channel or some with a YouTube channel or something, like where people actually can talk about it from both angles, like it's always like either really good or really bad. So I'm hoping that in the future with the young generation, especially from Chinese, like I've watched a lot of YouTube channels where a lot of foreigners they came to China, um, and then they suddenly feel like they understand everything about China, and um, they don't bother to dig deep into the history and stuff, like you do. Um, like you would actually study the history and everything, trying to understand more and more and more. But a lot of people, unfortunately, they come here and then they think they know everything now, and then they started talking about their experience, and then certain things are certain things they say are not quite true, because there's really this one thing. I feel like if you were not born in China, if you were not if you did not grow up here and see the history and see how things are changing over the time, you wouldn't know like truly the good things and the bad things. And I feel like as Chinese, we have these responsibilities to, speak up and to share our stories, our history, our culture to the world, because we live here and this is our country. And whether it's good or bad, we grew up here and we've experienced a lot of things. And if there's someone who can speak for China, that would be Chinese people. I that's what I personally believe, and that's why I want to see more and more Chinese people being more out there and just being connected with the world, and so that people can hear a lot of things from the actual Chinese, not just like American Chinese, like Canadian Chinese, like Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess one resource that I can recommend is your YouTube channel. You know, you talk.
Oh yeah.
That would probably be a good place to start if you want to learn more about the experience of being transgender in China. So
I did, yeah, I did document my entire surgery, and also some life stuff on my YouTube channel. So if anyone's interested, click on it. Link will be the link will be down in the description. I'm still not used to saying that.
the link will be in the description below, and I'll also I'll also post the article about the WeChat censorship in the link below, so people can read a little bit more about that. But Shia, it was great having you on the show and giving a perspective to this podcast that we haven't been able to discuss in great detail yet. So thank you for that.
Thank
And
you for having me.
and for those in the audience who want to see more content, you can go to the What is Asia podcast YouTube channel or go to NakotaDefonso.com. We will see you in the next episode.
Don't forget to like and comment down and subscribe and click on the bell icon so that you can get notified whenever he posts a new video.
Yeah, you need to be my social media manager.